Alright, so let's move on to book 2 of the Legend of Korra fight scenes. Let's rank them in a tier list. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Geek Talk. Today we're going to discuss my favorite fight scenes from Legend of Korra Book 2 in a tier list. If you haven't seen my other tier list videos, you can watch them here at the side of my face. I forget which side of my face, but it's going to pop here somewhere, I don't know where. You guys should know how a tier list works. S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. Let's go. Oh, okay, so a little caveat, I should say, for some of these fight scenes. And looking at all of these fight scenes, there's actually not that many actual fight scenes in Legend of Korra Book 2. And there's a lot of action scenes, but not a lot of fight scenes. And some people do have questions about what I mean between those two. So action scenes typically take place with multiple characters. Fight scenes to me are typically going to be one-on-one or maybe like a 2v1, 3v1. This first fight that I'm going to be mentioning is technically something I would consider an action scene, not a fight scene, but the reason I put it in is because it has one of my favorite shots in the entire series. So it's very funny. One of my favorite shots, my single favorite shot in the entire series of Avatar comes from my least favorite season. And that is Unalaq and Team Avatar versus the Dark Spirit that attacks the Carnival. In this one, I'm gonna have to put maybe not S tier, I'll put it in A tier because I can't really put it in S tier because basically one shot, and it's when we see the spirit bending that Unalaq does to quell the dark spirit that is there at the carnival or the festival. I forget if it's carnival or festival, but I love this one because there's this beautiful shot where we are pushing out from just the hands of Unalaq doing this channeling magic bending that I just think it just fuels my soul, and I love it so much. Now the fight scene prior to that, pretty cool too. I think we have some cool moves from Tonraq in it. Korra gets to show off the Avatar state and that she's basically mastered it at this point. So the fight scene, some cool stuff, not the awesomest, which is why I'm putting it in A tier. And then next up, we have the fight between Korra and the Watertribe rogues, or the bandits, the people who were working for Unalaq, but we didn't know they're working for Unalaq until later. This one was okay. I think it's a pretty standard fight. It might be B or C, but just off the top of my head, I'm gonna put it in B. There was some cool stuff with Korra where she was using some non-bending against the waterbenders, where she was using, I think it was a tapestry or something like that to wrap them around, and I thought it was pretty cool. Of course, she had her Naruto run, ninja run going on in the middle of it, which was kind of funny. And then of course the ending with the ice spike and making the snow, I was gonna call it a snow speeder, a snowmobile, making the snowmobile crash, I thought was pretty cool. But again, just kind of standard stuff. It actually might go down in C now I'm really thinking about it, but we'll see when we have more of this. Next up, we have Korra and Mako versus Unalaq, and this one easily will go to my S tier. Like I was saying before, I really love small, intimate fights, and Unalaq, I think, is one of the more underrated fighters in the Avatar universe. But this fight scene in particular that takes place in just this very small hallway between Mako and Korra, and just the dynamic of the kind of water bending Unalaq was using, this very precise water bending where he's hiding icicles between his water jets. And also, of course, the shots in this, there's no music in this whole fight scene too, which I think is very effective. You just get the full fire effects, you get the water effects, and then the icicles slicing through and going straight past the camera. Super well done. One of my favorite fights in the entire series. S tier for sure. The next up, we have Desna and Eska versus Korra when they're out in the water. I think this fight is kind of whatever. I think this one will also be a B tier fight because it was cool as in terms of it being a big scope, the huge water bending effects that we got to see, the water bending, and all of them just basically they're all having this fight by going across the water, going across the ocean, which I think was a really visually appealing way of doing all of that. But the fight itself was just kind of merp to me. It was cool with the Dark Spirit coming in and then, Korra going Avatar state. But other than that, I think it's just a pretty solid fight, nothing super extravagant or crazy to me. And the next up is a fight that I completely forgot existed until I started doing the rewatch. And that was the fight between the Triads and Mako when Mako and Asami were trying to escape. And it's a very short fight, but what I thought was most interesting to me, and also very quickly, I'm gonna probably put this in C tier. And it's very interesting because I never really noticed this about Mako, or how inconsistent he seems to be, because sometimes he's contending with people from the Red Lotus, or he's contending with the Mon, but then he's having trouble with low-level street gang people. And also just the style that Mako has. He's very, jab, 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 but not much else is part of his repertoire. He's, he's very much coming from a pro bending background, so he's very simplistic in his moveset. And he's not doing that well against the triple threat triad leader in terms of like, yeah, fight scene, you know, intrigue, C tier, maybe even be D tier, because I forgot this freaking fight even existed. And then next up, we have Juan, Avatar Juan, the very first time we see an Avatar actively fight versus Vaatu. And I'm gonna have to put this one in A tier, possibly in contention for S tier if I, you know, when I reevaluate all these listings at the end. This one is just crazy epic. It's also got a very nice story to it, because in the previous scenes we saw that Juan is in danger if he takes all the elements into him at the same time, or if Rava stays inside of him for too long. And we know that, you know, when spirits do that to humans, it doesn't often work out that well for them in terms of them, you know, dying. But this really is a good show of the heroism of Juan, and that he is able to forget about all of that and say, you know what, we have to defeat him. If I have to die, then, you know, that's what's going to have to happen. So that big catharsis, I think, is a big draw for this fight for me. And also, of course, the art style, the art design. So I'm gonna put it at A tier for now. Next up, we have Bolin versus the Waterbending bandits, soldiers who were trying to come and capture the president. And this one actually I thought was pretty cool. Now considering I'm seeing some of these things at B tier, I might have to make a big shift, because I do think that this is a pretty standard B tier fight. It is pretty awesome, but I wouldn't put it on par with the likes of like the Unalaq or the Juan fight. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start shifting some stuff. So we're gonna shift down the Mako and the triad fight here. We'll shift this down here, and we'll shift this down here, and we'll keep Mako in the mid tier, because I think it actually is a very solid fight. It's a very good fight, especially I like how it's juxtaposed with the movie in the background, and even with the lady with the lipstick, the actress lady, you know, she's like shouting his name, but then she's also shouting his name in the movie. I thought that there was a nice aesthetic to that, and a nice pacing to it. So yes, I'm gonna keep it as a solid B tier. The next up, we have another one which I know will automatically go to A tier. Again, might possibly go to S tier upon further review, and that is the Unalaq fight versus Tonraq. I think it's, again, very short fight, not long at all, to the point, the very succinct, very dynamic angles like this one here. You have these two different styles of waterbending, Unalaq being very precise, not moving a whole lot, and Tonraq just being like a bull and rushing him with everything he has, with all these icicles, and that he's trying to push up, and that he's really just trying to get that distance close, because he knows that, you know, if he can get that distance on Unalaq, he can defeat him. And I love, you know, internal fights like that. Like, you know, there's no anime-esque explanation of, like, you know, going into their heads and getting exactly what they're thinking, but you can capture all of that just by seeing the way that they move and the way that their styles are manifesting in the fight itself. And it seriously is in contention for S tier, I think. But again, I'll reassess at the end. The next up, we have, again, this is me just putting something in because I was like, dude, there's not a lot of fights in this season, this book. But it's the action scene, the big battle scene where Team Avatar and the airplanes they have are attacking the northern Watertribe that are trying to protect the North Pole portal. Yes, there's some cool stuff. I like the idea of Bolin and Mako fighting off of the wings of the plane, and that's an interesting visual element, and also just a good use of, like, you know, elemental bending with technology. But again, just me personally am not a big fan of, like, big battle scenes. Next up, we have Mako and Bolin versus Unalaq, which I think is also a very solid fight. I will put that one in the A tier. But this one's a really cool fight, really nice little precision that's going on with Unalaq, and also the tag teaming that we get to see from Mako and Bolin, which we see a few times in the series, but it's always nice to see the brothers fighting alongside each other. I think they're much better fighters when they're fighting side by side than when they are individual, you know, doing their own little thing. But of course, the objective of just giving Korra time, I think, is really cool. Whenever there's an objective in a fight, I'm always, you know, a fan of that. But yes, keep that one in A tier. And then these next three fights are basically the 3 rounds of fights between Korra and Unalaq, because all the other fights that are in the series are really just action scenes where maybe, you know, Tenzin and that crew were going against the dark spirits, but, you know, not actual fight scenes. So the first round, of course, is going to be Korra versus not Unalaq. This is when she was fighting Vaatu by himself. And again, I'm gonna put this one in A tier, and I'm really gonna have to make an adjustment, or I'm already gonna see that I need to make an adjustment already. But it's gonna go A tier. And the one piece of commentary that I really want to hone in on this one, cool fight scene, you know, epic proportions, and also that, you know, having Vaatu come out is huge because it's like, you know, it's a once in a 10,000 year sort of thing that would happen. But the main thing is that Korra does very well against Vaatu, and people, you know, tend to forget that Korra is a good fighter, or that she does get wins. People think that she just gets beat all the time, and people tend to have amnesia about this fight, that she actually was going to defeat Vaatu and put him back into the Tree of Time until Unalaq interrupts her, surprise attacks her. But anyway, A tier for this one though. I'm gonna start making adjustments right now because I really can't. I would love to put this one in S tier, but I can't because I don't like the rest of the scene. I only like it because of that one shot, so I don't think that's very fair. I definitely think that the wand fight, since it's more epic, might have to go. Matter of fact, I'm putting that S tier because it's the first time we've ever seen an Avatar fighting, so I think that one deserves to be in S tier. So we're gonna leave that one in S tier. I think that's a good place to put the wand and the Vaatu fight. I'm gonna put this one higher, the Unalaq and Tonraq fight, because I just think that one is just really good. And then maybe we'll put, dang, okay, I'll make this high tier for B tier, the Mako and Bolin versus Unalaq fight. Although I think that fight is actually really, really good. I just can't have everything, you know, be in one tier, which sucks. But let's go on to the next fight. So next one we have here is going to be Korra versus what I'm going to call basically the dark avatar. So basically we'll say the light avatar versus the dark avatar, because this is when we don't have the complete fusion of Unavaatu, when it becomes the big, you know, dark red and black spirit, but more of like when he's just being more in line with what a dark avatar would be, which would be like, you know, the human form with the spirit inside you. So in this fight here, again, I think it's got to be A tier at the least. Again, it's an epic fight. I really like when they come out of the portals and they both have their whirlwinds with Korra and her air sprout, and then we have Unalaq with his water spout, which is cool because he's making that water spout from the frozen tundra underneath. And of course, the huge moment of, you know, the past lives being destroyed, which is something that I actually really enjoyed, because oftentimes with some of these series, you get like these stakes that are presented and saying that, you know, be careful when you're entering the avatar state, or be careful when you're doing this and that, but you don't see the repercussions or the consequences of it. And I was really, really happy to see, not happy because I'm happy to see Korra lose her past lives, obviously, or happy to see the past lives go away, but that there was actual consequences for these, you know, big epic fights. And, you know, when you don't want to do death, things like, you know, Amon taking bending away, things like Korra losing the past lives, is like the closest thing you can have to death. And I think those things are very effective. And when the world presents things like this, it makes every subsequent fight that much more rich. And that's the reason why I have this one so high, because that is such an effective thing to me. But next up, we have a fight that I don't enjoy as much. It's definitely epic. This is going to be Cosmic Korra versus Unavaatu. I'm gonna put this one, I don't want to say C tier because it's not a bad fight. It's just very uninteresting because it's just colossal enemies who are just going like bang, bang, or like shooting energy beams. Those sorts of fight scenes are not as interesting to me, like overall. I won't say it's very boring, but it was underwhelming to me. I think that's the best way to explain it. So very underwhelming to me. But that is it. That is my entire list. I think I agree with the placement as I was adjusting on the fly. Usually I do this at the end where I do it, but I agree that this one is probably my favorite fight scene. The one in the hallway between Unalaq and the other two. Juan and Vaatu are hugely, hugely important, like I think for the whole entire series, and I think it's just a really cool scene in general. And I like where A tier is sitting. I like where B tier is sitting. Maybe I could even like move something like this up, but I don't think this one deserves to be B tier because I don't think it's on par with that Bolin fight. I don't think the Desna Eska one. I mean, if anything, maybe I could say that this one could go past here. Like I could say the Cosmic Korra thing can go maybe on the top of C tier. And then yeah, D tier I think is pretty in a nice place. And that's it. That is my list. You too can do this list too if you want to. I have a link in the description box below if you want to go ahead and, you know, do your stuff up. I want to hear from you guys, what you guys think your favorite fight scenes are from this season. And I'll see you guys in the next one. You can also watch more videos here at the side of my face. Peace, love, and remember, be water, my friend.